Hey guys, if you don't know me, I'm Reagan, and right now I'm working on a pet portrait of my parents' dog Gus. He's an absolute scaredy cat, but I do love him, and I'm really excited to work on this. I've actually already done a video where I was practicing painting because I don't ever really paint animals, or especially dogs, so I decided practice was needed before going into the final painting. But now I have my canvas. It's a wood canvas. I have it primed. I think I have about 5 layers on it. The packaging said to do 3 layers for oil, so I figured 5 was just safe. And I didn't know how thick their layers were, so I figured better safe than sorry. And now what I need to do before I actually start painting is take the picture that I'm using as a reference, put it onto my iPad, do a little outline in Procreate and print that out because I don't want to deal with having to figure out the proportions by eyeballing it or while I'm painting. Both those really annoy me, so I'm not even going to do it. I'm just going to do the outline, print it out, and normally I would just use pencil or charcoal on the back and then use something that's like a pencil on the other side where the outline is and use that to press in the outline onto the canvas. But my issue with that has always been, it always seems to smudge and it makes it hard, and I've always had issues with it, particularly with getting places that I don't intend it to get because it's a little bit finicky. So I decided I'm going to try transfer paper. I've never tried transfer paper. This is the King Art 9x13 graphite transfer paper. See, saves time creating art, easy to erase. Now that sounds nice. So I'm really excited to try this. It might go terribly, it might go great. But either way, I will learn something new. I can't put into words how stoked I am to finally actually paint on the canvas in oil. It's all ready to go, so I'm going to start undoing the background. I feel like having lower stakes to begin with is probably a good place to start. I don't think I'm going to get through the entirety of the denim in the photo, but I am going to try to work on the background before I do Gus because I want to make the background a little bit blurred, a little bit detailless, less detailed. There we are. So that the detail on Gus really pulls your attention to the subject rather than paying attention to the background. So that's what I'm going to do. I have my new easel, so instead of having to be hunched over and really close to the tabletop, I can have it at eye level, which I'm sure will take some getting used to, but I am so excited not to have neck and back pain while I work on this. 1 has actually gone very well with this painting. It gives me high hopes for the rest of it. Really, I think the main takeaway I've gotten from this is patience. Patience is key. The last time I used oil paints was when I did the Snow White video, which the information is interesting, but the actual painting process was rather frustrating because I was like, oh, this canvas isn't very big. It's like 3 by 3. I can paint it in 1 sitting or in 2 sittings. That didn't take into account that I was using oil paint and therefore it needed to dry. So in this case, I really took that lesson and applied it in a few different ways. So I guess starting from the beginning, I did try the transfer paper. It took me 3 tries to get it right. The first 2 times, instead of transferring it onto the canvas, it was transferring on the back of the paper that I was tracing. I had it the wrong way. I thought the dull side went down. Clearly I'm gonna end up messing this up again. I do remember I tried to see if I could rub off some of the charcoal or graphite or whatever it is from the corner just to make sure I had the right side, but it wasn't coming off, which is a good thing because then you're not getting it everywhere. But on the other hand, that's how it ended up taking me 3 tries to actually do the outline. But I'm sure it was one of those things where at some point I'll be like, of course, it's the shiny side down or the, not dull, matte side down. I'm sure one day will be a lot more second nature, but at the moment, that's a user error. But it worked really well. The lines were super crisp, they were dark, and it didn't get too much extra powder on it. I'm not sure how much of that was the paper or the fact that I used a fixative afterwards, because going back to that Snow White picture or some other paintings that I've done where instead of using a transfer paper, I just used either a graphite pencil or a charcoal pencil, but then there was a lot of extra powder. And in this case, I used the fixative, right? And again, I don't know if this was the transfer paper or the fixative, but it really locked in those lines. So when I was painting, the powder wasn't coming up and mixing with the paint, which was great. But also that meant that as I went over the lines a little bit to try to get it blended and such, I could still see the outlines a bit, so I know where to go back and fix it. I don't know, I'm just really thrilled with that, I gotta say. And the actual painting process itself went by really smoothly. I think I did it in 1 sitting, which I wasn't expecting because that's just a lot of space. And I don't really ever paint people, which means I don't really paint fabric and clothing. So that was an interesting thing to try to figure out, because usually I find that when I'm trying to paint nature, which is what I'm normally painting, it's fairly forgiving, or at least my eye, which doesn't go in nature all that much, is forgiving. I can't look at the picture and go, that doesn't look right, and And in this case, with the fabric folds, there were some times where I was looking at it going, that is not how fabric folds. I don't know what's wrong, but I know that's not right. But in the end, I figured it out. And I used a brush that's new to me to using, but I actually bought it many years ago, and it's this blending brush. And I remember when I bought it, thinking it looked like my makeup brush because it was also a blending brush. I was like, oh, I'm having this issue while painting. I should have been using that brush sooner. I really should have, because it made the blending so much easier. The one thing though is, like anything when you're blending, it kind of picks up the paint as it does, which meant that you can see a little bit of the white primer through, so I might end up doing a second coat on that, but I might wait because I find that usually the first thing I paint is, how do I phrase this? A lot of the times the deeper values aren't deep enough because what I have to kind of compare it to is a bright white canvas. And then I go in with the rest of it, and once the canvas is no longer white, I'm like, wow, the colors on the section are really dull and don't have the vibrance they really need. So I might just wait on that until I have more of the canvas down, just so that I know I don't also need to deepen the colors. I'm hoping that when I do a second coat and I blend, because the layer before it won't be a bright white primer, instead it'll be the oil paint, that it won't have as many white spots showing through. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. If you're curious to see where this whole process started, I already have a video up about that, and you can tune into that right now. But if you want to see where this painting ends up, you'll have to tune in. I'm sorry, it will be up soon. I clearly haven't worked on it. So with that being said, I hope you have an absolutely great week and that you tune in again.